TJ Podcast.
Without further ado, let's actually bring in Jake kind of formally here. I don't think we've ever had Jake on the podcast. Jake, have you done one episode maybe on Bitcoin way back in the day?
I've been on a few times.
Oh, geez, look at my memory, Matt. I mean,
It's been a while though. It's been 200 episodes or so. I was on 179 and 200, so it's been quite a while.
So do I get any kind of pass that it was more than 2 years ago, Matt? Or
No.
should I have remembered? I should have remembered? All right.
You should have remembered.
All right. Jake, it's always a pleasure to talk to you about markets. I've known you now for, 4.5 years? And you first met Matt in a ballroom and came into trading because of, your desire to learn about markets and all that kind of stuff. Matt, meeting Jake as a young man, I'm sure you're pretty amazed at his growth curve that he's developed over the years. Let's start with you, Matt. What have you seen from this young man since you first met him walking into your classroom 5 years ago till today?
Well, when I first met Jake, Jake, I think you were like 21, 22 maybe?
20, actually.
You were 20, that's right. But he looked like he was 5 years old, like he just, like baby faced. But I'll tell you, from the very second I met Jake, I was extremely impressed by how he carried himself, what his goals were. It was something that, I just believed, I just had such a belief in him because he had the right why, he had the desire, he knew there was going to be, time to learn this, and he was willing to give it the time necessary. And he just struck me as somebody who just knew that, how to get to where he wanted to go. He needed education, and he knew he had to put in the work. And I'm not surprised by his success in any capacity because of who that young man is and what his why was and the effort that he has put in. And I'm so happy to let the community know that Jake is going to be, a little bit more active over there at Tackle Trading, helping other new traders along the way as well.
Jake, as a beginner, did you have any idea what you were getting into 5 years ago? Now looking back at it, you've got the hindsight of 2020. You know how to trade. You've seen ups and downs in the markets, ups and downs, I'm sure, in your personal trading and accounts and life, just like anyone would in a 5-year period. First of all, are you glad you did it? Are you excited about the future? And could you have even guessed what this journey was going to be like?
That's a really good question, Tim. I don't think I really truly knew what I was getting myself into, how much effort and energy it was going to take, but also what it could be. All I knew is I wanted what Matt had. It seemed like he had control over finance, control over life, control over his time. And for me, I was studying engineering in school, not because I liked it, because I was told that's what you do to make money, and I was kind of lining up to go to that job just to get dollars to pay for a life that I was told I needed. And I wasn't really happy with all those moves. And I saw this guy up there saying, hey, you can just sit at home, click buttons, make money. I was like, damn, okay, I need me some of that. And it did take some time. It did take some effort and energy. And I'm really glad that I put in not only the time, but the capital to stick with it. It's really easy. I meet people all the time, traveling and teaching new traders of, oh, I tried this and I did that. I think it really takes some time of being around markets, seeing different market conditions. Like even I'm learning every single day. Even this week is a new learning environment for me as a trader. And taking that long-term approach, all of my young students that I ever teach, somebody that was in my boat, I always give them the advice that I wish I knew, and that was to look a little bit more long-term. I got into this just to make a quick buck so that I could pay for my life, not have to be beholden to a job. But I'm really staying for the fun and the thrill of investing, and I really thank you, Tim, for that. Got me off the short-term mindset into the long-term. But this is something that you're going to do the rest of your life. You have dollars in your life. You're going to have money in a 401k or an IRA. The peace of mind that I have right now in these volatile markets, I don't think I could put a price on that.
Jake, how long did it take you before you felt real comfortable with the art of, not necessarily investing, But trading, swing trading, day trading, understanding, those the cycle that happens on a 24-hour basis, and just how long did it take before you felt real comfortable with it?
I'm probably a couple months. I think it took me maybe 6 months to really understand all the products and all the time frames, the difference between position trading, swing trading, day trading, futures, forex, options, how I wanted to use them, and probably just over a year to get truly proficient with it, right? Figuring out what works for me and how I tick. I like to scalp forex and swing trade forex at night when I can't sleep, and figuring out how I want to run my business took a little bit. But man, 1 year of my life to build a skill set that I can use the rest of it, it was a
Mm-hmm.
small price to pay.
And out of those products, understanding all the products, futures, forex, commodities, stocks, all the different option strategies, buying, selling, day trading, swing trading, position trading. What products, after 5 years of doing this, are your go-to products in an environment like this, where we're seeing a lot of volatility and a lot of good day trading techniques?
In these markets right now, all I'm doing is day trading futures. That's it. I'm sticking to cash at night. I honestly sometimes don't even feel like I know if it's going up or down the next day. And starting off the day clean and having the leverage of the futures market so that you can really get a good bang for your buck. I do like a lot of position trading of options, and any one of my students knows that the majority of the time that's the bulk of how I trade. But in this type of market, I've transitioned completely to the futures market and practically only day trading besides my long-term holds, just to take advantage and scoop up the profits while the getting is good.
That's an old market maker type mentality of go into a cash position for the end of the close and reopen it the following day. And Jake, you said sometimes you don't know if the market's going to go up or down the following day. I think that's pretty much par for the course with everybody right now.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, we had 4,000 point days, 2 up, 2 down. The Dow opens up today down 2,000 points. Tomorrow could just go right back. And, I remember I was on the halftime report last week and I said, this market really does remind me a little bit of what happened in the European debt market of September of 2011, where, back then the Dow was running 400 points up, 400 points down, 400 points up, 400 points down, because the market did not know how to price in the risk to the European debt explosion. And I think you're seeing a little bit of that right now, given the fact that we're, in the middle of it. I think one of the things Wall Street is really struggling with is figuring out how to price in the true risk to the Corona situation, because there's just so many unknowns, right? And one of those unknowns is, what is the government going to do? What is the central bank going to do? What are corporations going to do? And so I think they're having a very hard time on a day-to-day basis pricing in what the true risk from an economic and a market perspective is to Corona, because I just don't think anybody knows right now.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Matt. I mean, how can you know? Because we don't know what it's going to do to consumption, to spending, to consumer confidence, and all those kind of things. So, and obviously the market's moving 1,000 points a day is crazy. But today, guys, almost 2,000 points down, like you said, Matt. I think that might be the record if it ended up closing down there. We only got a few more minutes here in today's day.
It'll be the record from a point perspective, not from a percentage perspective, but from a point perspective.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Jake, as you've gone through this 5-year window here, you're still a young man, dude. You're still a kid, and you still look like you're 5, by the way. Matt, maybe he looked a lot younger when you first met him. I still think he could pass for about 15 if he wanted to.
Jake's going to be 45 years and still going to get carded to buy a beer.
Right. And why do young people not like it when you tell them they look young? I mean, every old guy would like to look young.
Just wait 10 years, Jake. You'll appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. What's one mistake you made, Jake, that you feel like, man, that was just me messing up? I could have avoided it. I was trained to do it differently. Because we can all learn from our max loss lessons and all that kind of stuff. What's something that you really messed up on in your first few years of trading?
Well, I don't know if it's messed up, but missed opportunity cost is I remember the conversations on the S&P 500 when it was bouncing between 2,000 and 2,100. And, I didn't actually become an investor or believe in long-term mindset until literally last year. And really talking with you, Tim, there were points in my life where 95% of my liquid net worth was found in my trading account. And I was trying to use the argument of capital efficiency and getting the most yield per dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you really brought into the conversation for me, you know, well, what happens if you go crazy, right? Or if you have a bad mental spot? You know, investing long term is something else that you need to do. And I really embraced that, you know, last year. And I'm kind of kicking myself that I started buying into the S&P, you know, 2,800, 3,000 when I saw it at 2,000.
And this goes back to a core philosophy I have, and you know, Matt, I think you could probably share it as well. Trading is a vehicle to finance your long-term investments. You know, you're supposed to use the trading markets to build your accounts for sure, but at some point, you take the money from trading and you go do other things with it, like start a business, invest in real estate or property, or buy stocks long term. And I know Mark disagrees with this point of mine, not necessarily, you know, for everybody, but just for himself personally. It's why I believe in separating accounts. You know, the account you day trade in, I don't think should be the account that you invest for the next 20, 30 years in for your retirement. Matt, what are your thoughts on all that?
A couple of things. You can run them in one account. You can run them in multiple accounts. It just depends on you as the individual and how you process data. Some people, you know, if they're running their active trading account within their, you know, long-term accounts, sometimes it'll drive them a little bit crazy because they're looking at too many data points. So I understand both sides of that equation. But what Jake said is very, very important, because you should never have everything on one time frame, right? Because what if you're wrong on that time frame, right? What if something goes wrong, you get over leveraged and massive market volatility hits? For example, let's say your analysis is coming out of last week that it was an overreaction to you know, OPEC, and you were long oil, and you were long oil in a futures contract. You have more risk than what you put into that trade. You can blow up an account with something that happened in oil today. I guarantee there are hedge funds that literally will cease to exist following today because of massive margin calls regarding the oil market. So what if you're wrong? Well, that just goes to the heart of diversification for me. So when you're talking about diversification, you can't think about diversification the way Wall Street pitches diversification within a 401k or a long-term IRA, because they think mutual funds are diversified because they have multiple different stocks in them, right? But there's nothing diversified if you own Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, Microsoft. That's not diversification. To me, diversification is three things. Number one, it's diversification amongst time frame. If you have your long-term investments dialed in, short-term trading becomes a heck of a lot easier. So having multiple different time frames within your portfolio is important. Number two, diversification amongst asset classes. You should not just be into the stock market. You should have commodities. You should have currency. You should have diversification amongst the asset classes. You should have some bonds. You should have diversification, because if all you do is invest in stock, well, what happens when the market goes haywire like it's doing in the last week? Well, you're probably down more than the market is. That's a simple reality. If you own stock and the market goes down 10%, you're probably down 12, 13, 14, 15%. And especially when these types of fear happens, almost everything goes down initially. It's about what recovers faster is that secondary conversation. So you should have diversification amongst asset classes, and you should have diversification amongst strategy selection. You shouldn't just be a net buyer. Every portfolio should have some hedges, some bearish type action that can offset some of those long positions. And so that's what kind of sparked my mind when Jake was talking about having multiple time frames and what he learned from you last year. And I'm willing to bet having that conversation last year with you and getting those long terms kind of settled in really kind of allowed him to do what he's done over the last week, where he's had his best trading week that he's ever had.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, and by the way, young man, I do want to give you a moment of caution. Sometimes you can have these big weeks. Let the hubris, the ego get involved. Keep a cool hand. You know what I mean? You know, try to make sure you stay rule based. I expect you to. You're a pretty disciplined trader, Jake.
The simple reality is, if you don't stay humble as a trader, the market is going to teach you some very valuable lessons that will humble you very quickly.
Max loss will be coming. That's exactly right. Jake, do you pretty much follow your rules? I mean, are you the kind of trader that stays disciplined, stays rule-based, doesn't really break them too often?
I do my best, but I also have a trading partner for a reason. You know, Emily's there to call me out on my BS when I get in my head, and I'm the first person to tell her. I mean, even today, I was getting a little bit too over leveraged, I would say. I started adding a little bit more contracts than I tell myself I'm allowed to. And it worked out positively, but I had to report myself. I'm like, hey, Em, just so you know, if you ever see that, call me out on my BS. Because it's easy to get a little, like you said, hubris in this moment where capital's flying and it's flying in the positive direction. So most of the time I'm pretty good, but I have people in my life to keep me on track, even when my brain tries to pull me off.
And one more follow up on that. In your day trading, the way you're approaching it, do you prefer the morning pre-market open? Do you prefer the market open, middle of the night? You said you were watching it in the middle of the night last night. What's your favorite time of day to trade?
I so over the last couple of years, I've really been a mid-market morning reversal type person, right? As soon as the Euro markets are closing, you're looking for that 11:30 Eastern kind of slowing down of Europe, picking up of the afternoon has been kind of my bread and butter of what I look to trade through the close. I'm just not really a morning person, but with these markets, I'm willing to wake up for this movement. Let's say that. So I was up till 2, 3 a.m. trading crude oil, but then I set my alarm to make sure I saw the open. So in these markets, I'll wake up.
You know, there was many a ballroom, Matt. Jake was walking in the last second, trying not to be late when we were teaching. So if he's waking up for these markets, that's telling you a lot right there. Because I know the young man does enjoy his sleep. Is that fair, Jake?
It's fair. You know, I think everybody's a little different. I'm a person that I think just needs a little bit more sleep than the average person. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah. My wife will want to listen to this, by the way. She'll be like, yes, Jake is my dude. There's no doubt about it. What are your goals moving forward, kid? You want to just keep day trading, picking up? I mean, you're hitting them right now. Obviously, a great week right now. But what are your big goals as a trader, investor, moving into the future?
I'm really excited about setting myself up for the next decade. You know, so we started 2020, right? We're starting a whole new decade, and I've never had the kind of the experience of making such a long-term plan. And really, last year of switching my mindset of not all short-term but thinking long-term. You know, I'm 24. I want to have a plan to 35, the next 10 years, how to take advantage of these markets most effectively. And right now, where my brain's going as interest rates go lower, you know, how can I borrow more capital, right? You know, there's opportunities right now that you can maybe borrow at a cost lower than that of inflation. Opportunities abundant. How can I leverage those type of opportunities that I might not ever get again, or might not be as abundant as they are right now, to set myself up for the future? That's really where my head's at.
I love it. I love it. Matt, this young kid is pretty amazing. You know, there's no question about it. What do you think his top talents are? I've seen him interact with people. I've seen him be empathetic. He's an incredible trader, credible investor. But you met him as a younger man 5 years ago before he had started all of this journey. I mean, what can you say last about Jake here?
Jake is going to have an absolutely wonderful life and as a great investor, and not just in the stock market, but in other asset classes. And I'm just excited as you know what, just to be a part of that journey, to watch his development over the course of the last 5 years has been truly extraordinary, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason a lot of us are like, okay, Jake, we're gonna have an old school wedding here. You're gonna marry one of my daughters, type thing. But in all reality, it's been an absolute honor just to be a part of his journey and to, you know, meet this young man 5 years ago and to watch him grow as a trader, to watch him grow as an investor. And for me, anyways, what I get most excited about is to watch him grow as an educator, to be able to pass on this degree of knowledge to, you know, to his generation and the generations that will come after him. And, you know, I said this the other day. I said to our team, you know, it's our responsibility to train those next amazing educators that will help other people out. And, you know, obviously I was thinking about Jake when I said it, because he is a wonderful trader. He's a wonderful investor. He's a wonderful human being, but he is becoming quickly an amazing educator as well. And, you know, I look at Jake and I look at his generation that, honestly, Jake, your generation has never seen what is transpiring today. And there's going to be a lot of lessons learned from what is happening, both good and bad. And as long as we can learn from those good and bad, that generation is going to be set up to be the future generation of investors. So I'm excited for that as well. But it's all due to his desire, his why, his hard work, and his infectious personality. And whenever you meet Jake, you just want to sit there and just talk to him and listen to him and just see what he's working on, because his mind never really stops except when he sleeps 14 hours a day. But outside of that, his mind is constantly working. What can I do better? And even though Tim, he's had his best trading week he's ever had in the last week, the first thing that he was talking to me about when I was talking to him the other day was, what can I learn to get better now? What are the lessons I can learn? What adjustments can I make? He wasn't patting himself on the back. He wasn't showing hubris. He wasn't saying, look at me. I'm a god of a trader. He was thinking, okay, what are those lessons I can learn in this environment to even get better in the future? And I think that's the mark of a great capitalist, a great entrepreneur, a great investor, is not only to look at those moments where you have wins, but to look at those moments and have an honest reflection of, what did I do? What can I improve? What can I do better? What lessons are to be learned in this environment? Because sometimes, as a trader, some of it is just raw luck. Some of it's good timing. Some of it's bad timing. But to be able to learn in that environment is very important. And that was very impressive of him as well.
Yeah. Jake, you're a rock star kid. Has it been easy to get your family excited about what you're doing? And have they started to come along over the last couple of years? I know originally they weren't all the way there. And also maybe people of your generation, your buddies or guys you grew up with, are they all just like, hey, Jake, I want to know what you want to do? And they come to your office and sit down, try to learn? Or
do they just ask you for hot tips?
Yeah.
Actually, there's a lot less asking than I'd imagine, surprisingly. Yeah. I drip on people, and I'll mention certain things like, hey, I was able to do this week, or I'll send a little screenshot of what I did to some of my friends. But there aren't as many conversations as I think there could be, or maybe even should be. And I think that's where a lot of people maybe get ego involved when it comes to money and don't want to have the conversations. One thing that I always try to do is realize that, as much as I know so little. And everybody I meet can teach me something. So whether it's somebody I met in one of my ballrooms, teaching them, and they've been investing for 30 years, or talking with you and Matt and Mark, or anybody that I meet, I'm always saying, what can I gain from their experience or through their information? And I wish more people were maybe like that, because I have a lot of information to share of some of the things I've learned, and I'll be the first to admit I don't know everything. But the cool part about the last couple of years is that I built a really good network of people that when I don't have the answer, I usually have somebody on speed dial that does.
Love it. Jake, thank you.
Those questions happen when the markets go down, buddy.
You get a few more of them, don't you, Matt?
So get ready.
Yeah, you sure do. All right, guys. Jake's going to be back with us during our game here in just a minute. But first, a live read from Coach
TJ Podcast.